Hello everyone, today I am going to show you how to make a pumpkin using air dry clay. And this air dry clay is from Crayola. I've been able to find it online, places like Amazon or Walmart sometimes has it in stock, or Target, those types of places. So I'm using the Crayola air dry clay. There are other places that sell air dry clay, but this one is the easiest to find. Now I am going to grab about a kiwi-sized piece out of here. Might be a little bit bigger than a kiwi. That's pretty close. All right, so about the size of a kiwi fruit. And then I'm gonna make sure I close this back up so it doesn't dry out. Okay. The other thing I need is a pair of scissors. I need a paper clip, and I'm gonna use a water cup. Now, air dry clay works a lot like earthenware type clays that we might put in the kiln if we were at school. But at home, this is nice because it just dries on its own. But it does take a few days to dry. So I have one here that I've painted, but I had to wait about 3 days in order to paint it because it had to dry first. So I'm just going to show you today how to build it. And then if you want to add color to it, you need to wait till it's dry to do that. I used watercolors on mine. You could also, I think, use an acrylic paint or markers even, as long as it's dry. My favorite is watercolor paint though. So when you get started with this, you're gonna need a pretty big piece to do the pumpkin, and then a smaller piece for the stem and the leaf. So I'm gonna take off a piece that I can use for the stem and the leaf. I would say that the leaf piece should be about the size of maybe a marble. The stem piece should be a little bit bigger than that. So you can see the stem piece is slightly bigger. And then the rest is actually going to be used for the pumpkin. Now I think the piece I have here is actually bigger than those because the insides of those is actually mostly hollow. All right, so when I get started, I am going to get this made into a ball first. I'm gonna move some things out of the way here. And then I'm gonna work to kind of form it into a ball. So the first thing I do is I usually kind of use my hands to squeeze it and get it close to that ball shape, kind of like that. And then after I've got it mostly in a ball shape by squeezing it, then I roll it. And when you roll, I roll in a circle on the table. You just wanna be careful not to press down, because if you press down, you're gonna get more of a pancake. All right, so I'm rolling. I'm doing my best. Does it need to be perfect? No, this is not gonna stay a ball actually. So as long as it's mostly ball-ish, you should be fine. Looks like I'm starting to kind of get a little bit of a ridge there, and that's just maybe my circles aren't big enough, or maybe I'm pressing too hard. It's more about how many circles you roll, not how hard you press. All right, so that's pretty good. Now, I'm taking this piece and turning it into a pinch pot. So I am gonna start by making a hole, but I don't wanna go all the way through. I'm gonna go just as far in as I can go. I use my thumb because it's really strong, and I push it while holding my other hand around it so it's still round. And then I just wanna get pretty far in there. You can see I'm all the way into the knuckle, nice big hole. Now, I am gonna put my thumb in, and I'm gonna do some gentle pinches to make my pinch pot. I'm not wrapping my fingers all the way around. I'm also not pinching the edge. So I'm kind of gentle. If I end up pressing too hard, then it's gonna start getting really bumpy looking. So we gotta be careful, keep it nice and smooth. You can use either hand. Sometimes when it gets big enough, some people like to use both hands. I think that's a little bit harder. I prefer to hold it and just kind of keep turning it, and gentle squeezes until I get a pretty good size. Now, once you've got a good size here, usually you want to look at the edges, make sure it's fairly even. The edges are about as thick as a pencil, so you can kind of compare them. Now, that's my pinch pot, but now I have to turn it into a pumpkin. To turn it into a pumpkin, I'm actually going to use my scissors. So I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to be cutting the edges. I would say every 2 fingers. So if I measured 2 fingers, that's where I would make the next cut. And I'm going pretty far down, not all the way to the bottom. I don't want these pieces to fall off. think I'm gonna try and get 2 more in there. All right, so now I've got it cut into pieces. It kind of looks like a flower when you look at it like this, and you can totally see my thumbnail marks in there. So now what I'm gonna be doing is actually taking each one of these pieces and sort of rolling it into a U shape. So I'm making them into a U shape. Now, once I've got them all made into U shapes, I have to wait to put it together until I get the stem ready, because I'm actually gonna put the stem down the middle. So I'm gonna take this bigger piece, this one here, and I'm gonna get that going. And I am gonna be rolling this one back and forth to form the stem. Now, you wanna make the stem so it sticks out. So if it's sitting in there, I wanna get it long enough that it's sticking out. Okay, so kind of like that. And then after that stem is made, what I'm gonna do is I am gonna bring the U-shaped pieces up to the stem. And I'm gonna be kind of pulling and pushing them together a little bit so that they're forming the sides. So I'm pushing them up to the stem, bringing them around. This one is gonna have a tougher time fitting in, but we'll get it. All right, now I just make sure they're all kind of tucked in against the stem. Now, the shape may not be perfectly round. If you want to kind of sit there and gently move it around until it is more round, you can do that. But now you can see I've got those kind of ridges in the pumpkin, which is very realistic. But it's kind of bumpy, kind of messy. There's some cracks. So that's why I have my water cup. So once I've got this done, I can use my water cup to smooth things out. So anywhere it looks like maybe there's a rough spot. I wouldn't use too much water though, and get real slimy real fast. Make that nice and smooth. Get rid of those little dents from my fingers or those little cracks. And then once that's done, I am going to actually use my paper clip that I have. And if you have a toothpick, that's fine too, because I'm actually gonna open up my paper clip. So toothpick or paper clip, and then I'm going to use that to actually kind of extend these lines down the side of the pumpkin. So I actually take my paper clip and I open it like this, and then I just kind of use the edge of it to sort of extend the line from my cut all the way to the bottom. And you can drag it down if you want. I don't always like to drag it because it ends up sometimes making like little chunks of clay. But if you just press it, just press the side of it in, you can extend that line. And obviously if you mess it up, you just smooth it out with your finger and try again. And then once those lines are extended down the side of the pumpkin, then you're ready to add on the leaf. So to make the leaf, I am gonna roll a ball. So I'm gonna, oops, accidentally just poked my pumpkin. All right, so I'm gonna roll a ball, and then it doesn't need to be perfect because it's definitely not gonna stay that way. Once it's ballish, then I am actually going to press it flat between my finger and my thumb, give it a good squeeze, and that should start to flatten it. Now I need to make it pointy on the end, so I'm actually gonna hold it and then use my finger and thumb and kind of pinch towards the end, and then pinch the top and bottom and pinch the sides until I get the shape that I want. Now, if you find that you made your leaf too big, you can start over. This is nice that you can just re-roll this if you need to. You can start over and do a smaller ball if you want. So then what I'm gonna do is I am gonna use my paper clip or toothpick again, and I'm gonna press it down, but don't press too hard because you don't wanna cut it. And I'm gonna use that to make the veins on the leaf that I'm gonna add to my pumpkin. You may, if your edges are really thick, you may wanna actually kind of gently sort of pinch those a little bit more flat. Now, to attach the leaf, I'm gonna use a little bit of water on the back of it. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of extra water back there and then kind of figure out where I want it to be. I think I'm gonna put mine right here. And then obviously kind of wiggle and gently press it on there. Then if you wanna curl it or stick it against the pumpkin, you can kind of make those adjustments as you go. Some people also like to texturize the stem, so you could use this to kind of add in some stem texture as well. I'm just using the side of it again and pressing it in. That's up to you. Some people like the stem to be a little bit more smooth. They usually have a lot of ridges in them, so that's why some people do it this way. Now, once you've done that, you have to let this dry. So you would probably let this dry 2 or 3 days, maybe even longer. And you can usually kind of tell. This one I would say actually isn't completely dry yet. It's got a bit of a dustiness to it, but it is harder. And then if you want, you can paint with your watercolor paints if you have watercolors, or any sort of paint actually works fine. The reason I like the watercolors is they actually kind of soak into the clay a little bit, so you get like a really nice, soft painted effect with the watercolor paints. So I hope you have fun making your pumpkin.